Good evening, everyone. It's Alyce. Today is September 10th, 2011. I just got out of the shower. I had some pretty interesting thoughts in the shower, and I wanted to share them with you. This is going to be a little bit long, so if I'm boring you, click me off, but this is my story, and I'm going to tell it. So I'm doing this today on the 10th, not on the 11th, because tomorrow I'm going to be busy. Every year I watch the As It Happened. NBC always has right before the towers hit with Matt and Katie, and when the tower hit. And I just want to discuss briefly where I was, what I was doing, and kind of how it seems to have woven into my current situation with my husband who has cancer. I was pregnant. Um, I was just 2 months pregnant, actually. And my husband worked in Chicago, downtown, and only a few blocks from where we lived. And I was watching television and I saw the first plane hit. And I was like, that's crazy, just like everybody else. And then when the second plane hit, my thought was actually, it must be so smoky and like foggy that the second plane crashed into the Twin Tower. And it wasn't until Matt kept saying that this is obviously a terrorist attack that I became hysterical, hysterical, screaming and crying. And I felt like my innocence was gone. Like I felt like a completely different person. I called my husband. I said, "You have to come home right now." People were standing in the streets of Chicago looking up at the Sears Tower because there was information that the tower was next, and just look, everybody was looking up. And then the next, when the plane crashed in Pennsylvania, because we were going to leave and go to the country, I felt like, oh my God, where are we going to go? There's no place to go. The planes are falling from the sky. He came home and I was just hysterical. My parents lived in New York. My little brother, who's not little anymore, happened to have been at the original Trade Center bombing in '93, worked downtown in Manhattan. We couldn't reach him. We couldn't reach my wonderful sister-in-law because the cell phones weren't working. We didn't know where anybody was. As it turned out, my father lost his job very shortly after 9/11 because his business was involved with one of the towers, and it was just terrible. It really, I called my mother and I was just beyond consolable. And at that moment, she decided, or maybe not on the 11th, but maybe on the 13th, she decided that Chicago was the place for my parents, who were married at the time, to be. She immediately came out here and never left, and decided that it was more important to stay with me and the babies I was carrying than where she was in a beautiful loft that she loved dearly. And my life really changed. And every day, not for a long time, I was devastated. And every year around this time, my sadness is overwhelming. Thinking about the people who just went to work that day. That's all they did. They just went to work, or they were just flying in to see a friend or a family member, or they were just being, and they never came home. They never said goodbye. They could have been in a fight with their spouse or their kids, and they just didn't know. And it was their last day. February 17th, the day that I got the diagnosis from the doctor. My husband was actually not in the room with us. He was out for some reason, and I was sitting across from a wonderful doctor. She actually is an oncologist, but She's the one that told me that it was kidney cancer. And I know that when she said it, I put my hands over my ears and I said, I need you to stop talking. I need you to stop talking. And I fell to the floor with a similar reaction that I had on 9/11, that something was going to change and it was going to change forever. And I cried and I cried. And I went and I called my mother sitting on the bathroom floor in the hospital. And I said, Eric has cancer. And she said, she lived in Florida at the time because she moved. She was in Chicago, and then she moved to Florida. And so shh. And so then she said, I'm coming up. And just like she did on 9/11. And I remember I came out of the bathroom and I obviously looked a wreck, and my husband came in and saw my face, and he said, is it bad? And I said, no, 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 it isn't bad. They found something, and it'll be okay. Um, and that day changed my life. However, unlike the people in 9/11, I have the opportunity to say all the things I want to my husband. My children have the opportunity to say all the things they want to their dad. And a very good friend of mine from 20 years asked me how she could do things in her life, not sweat the small stuff. And how am I just coping? How am I getting on? And I realize that things are so temporary. You just really don't know. You don't know when your 9/11 is coming. You just don't. There's no guarantee. I recently said to my daughter, she was asking me about her father, and I said, sometimes people walk outside and they get hit by a bus, and I'm talking to a 9-year-old, and I said, and they're roadkill, and that's it. They never get the chance to say anything to the people that they love, and how fortunate we are that we get that opportunity. So I guess the lesson um, that I didn't really learn from 9/11, but I should have, that I'm learning today, is that the only guarantee is right this second. Like right this second, right this second. Not in 2 seconds when my house could be hit by lightning, right? And we could all blow up. And I'm not, at all saying that you should just, live in fear. To the contrary, live in peace and happiness, and live like today could be the last day that you get to say the things you want to say. So say them. Say them out loud. Whatever they are. Say them. Be authentic. Be at peace. So for all of you who've lost people on 9/11 or are losing people today, my words of wisdom, which I'm not very wisdomic, that's a new word, are be present, and love people you love. I guess I don't want to say eliminate, but I've done a little bit of reorganizing my life, reorganizing the people who are important to me, spending much more time with the people who are important to me, spending much less time with the people who aren't, being true to how I feel at the moment. So I hope it helps somebody when I'm saying, I don't know, but I just felt it amazing that I didn't learn my lesson then. And it's 10 years. And it took something like this, something so sad and something so personally catastrophic, to help me gain some insight. So if anybody can learn from me and not have to go through what I'm going through, or go through what the people of 9/11 have gone through, or people who've suffered, there are millions of people who've suffered. Take from what we're experiencing, and certainly don't pretend that it's you, because I don't want you to be sad. But take the wisdom part, the learning part, that life is so precious, and treat it as such, because it is temporary. Nothing is permanent. That's it. Love you.